Hello and welcome to Business Strategy Live. And today we're going to be talking to Chris Davis about the FSB and the wonderful work they've been doing in supporting businesses throughout the COVID-19 crisis that we've been in and lobbying the government for different things. So, Chris, could you tell us a little bit about the FSB and what they've been up to?
Well, certainly. Just to give you a bit of a background, as some of the people may know, because the Federation is a business organisation and not, a networking group, although a lot of people use this for networking, we are the voice of the small business community. Obviously, the Federation of Small Businesses, to give it its proper title, is the National Federation of the Self-Employed. And we are representative of all self-employed small businesses, that most people would consider to be reasonably large. We go up to a factor of, I think for allowance purposes for members, we're up to 250 staff. That's kind of cut-off point. So majority of the time, we are actually supporting roughly 70%. So I'd say that because 70% or thereabouts of every single business in the country is a one-man band, that's where we've been most helpful. And one of the things I've been really, really pleased about in looking at sites like Facebook and other things like that is the fact that we have, at least people have heard a bit more about the FSB, but not really aware that we've been working behind the scenes and largely contributing to some of the successes. So the grants, the finance, those kind of things we've been actively involved in. In some cases, they are actually, our baby, if you like. Who else would support the self-employed other than the National Federation of the Self-Employed? So we brought about the grant side of things, worked with the government to make sure it was accurate. I know that Rishi actually thanked us for the work that Mike Cherry and his team did, Mike Cherry being the chairman, and Craig, of some of the work that was put in. We ran many webinars to try and get the message across of, finance and grants that were available, but there's still somewhat of a confusion. I think the banks were pretty poor to start with regard to the, sorry to criticize people, but they were, with regard to the CBIL loan initially, because they started making up their own rules. Which is why the bounce back loan particularly has taken off so well. I mean, who else and in what part of the, the known world would you get a 2.5% loan paid for by the government in the first year and no security? I mean, that's extraordinary. So, and what I want people to understand is the raison d'etre of the FSB is to help to get that voice out there. And the reason why people hopefully would join the FSB is as much that as what we provide for benefits of being a member. Because these days people want to have something out of being a member, of course.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I know that also the FSB were quite behind the idea of trying to find a way to resolve this issue of small businesses where the owner takes most of the money in dividends and things like that as well. You've been just trying to fight that argument too, haven't you? It's
a very difficult thing to assess, because what you've got to look at is the greater masses of the self-employed pay more tax, proportionally, which is why a lot of people go limited. But the trouble with going limited and taking dividends is there's no tax to pay on the 2,000 initial. And of course, therefore, they're paying less tax. So if you're going to offer a service whereby you're going to get an income support where there isn't money available, at least for the self-employed, there was. We had paid into the pot, as it were. And all we've got is a kind of a payback. Whereas those who have, and let's face it, there are some companies who pay very little tax at all, because of using, top down, all that sort of, the usual kind of top slicing. Sorry, used to be an accountant, know these things. But you see, and then you sort of think that now you can't go bleating to me because you're now not making the kind of huge amount of money you were making. And I'm very conscious of also the fact that people are in a bit of a stew over what they can get, and still to this day, I mean, in the early stages of the grant, to do with the shops and offices and so on, up to under 12,000 rateable value, where you get a £10,000 grant, there were still people not claiming or didn't know they could claim. And then, of course, those who fell out were the ones who were fell in under the cracks were the ones who had a shared premises. And I've always argued to landlords that perhaps if you could do it, they should make themselves responsible for the rates. And therefore, if they have a proper premises that can be rated. And then the other thing I found rather disturbing, and still do really, is that a lot of people who would have qualified didn't at that time have the council assess their rate. And they would actually have normally qualified. And because of that, they didn't. So there were lots of holes. I mean, it's like a Swiss cheese. Who's ever been, in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this.
No.
It's on an unprecedented scale. And small businesses are the larger part of the economy. And who better to tell the government what is needed, what is necessary, and what is required in terms of a foundation other than the FSB. So, as an agent now for 23 years and a member for the same time, I'm very proud, really seriously proud of what we've been able to achieve.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen Mike Cherry on the telly as well, answering questions and that. So it's pretty clear that the FSB have been very active in trying to support small businesses through this crisis.
I don't suppose he's actually got much sleep. I mean, it must have been, constant, particularly when you work out initially, here's an idea, pitched, yes, by unions, but let's face it, what would unions want to know about the small businesses? Because they're not really interested in small businesses. The greater masses are the employed. Well, yeah. But the fact is that small businesses employ more people. So they need to be protected there. What I think is a tragedy, and this is something that I've spoken to online to many, many people in the leisure industry, and of course, Bournemouth area, Dorset area, and the Isle of Wight is largely leisure, is the biggest letdown. That because rateable values have artificially, in some cases, been put up higher, they've fallen out of the grant side. So I'm really hoping that although there now appears to be a closing date, doesn't there, on the discretionary loan because of allocation. I'm hoping that more people will be supported. I think they have to find money, otherwise there's no economy, to run things from.
Yeah, it's certainly been a very difficult time for many businesses, and when they do get back to work, who knows what it'll be like then with social distancing in some of the leisure facilities.
One of the things that occurred to me, sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's Tibble to me, I'm afraid. Yes, folks. He talks too much. Is just an observation, and that is our incredible British resistance to people telling us what to do.
Yeah.
Now you apply that to the workplace, and you have a real problem for some employers. I'm not going to do that. I am not going to. What is the rule? Damn it, if people sort of said what exactly is a distance, and we won't name names about how far you can go to places, either coming or going. Joke, sorry. I quite like that one, I just thought that one. The simple fact is that in a business environment, you've got a problem. Because people don't like resistant to change. They've got a lot of changes to make. They put the onus on the owner of the business. Who knows who could be sued for whatever now as a result of not distancing. As an organisation, one of the things I always say to people, and this is probably one of the biggest reasons for being an FSB member, is our services are instantaneous. As soon as somebody is paid what is literally a pittance, and in general terms, you're a member, Steve, we pay from £147 a year for a sole tradership to a business of up to 100 staff at about £500 a year or something along those lines. And to a little business, average businesses are 95% of all businesses less than 10. So 253. So you might as well say your legal bill, Mr. Client, Mr. Member, for up to 4 businesses is 253 quid a year. And we're going to protect you from employment law and tax investigations and now criminal prosecution for free just because you become a member, as long as it hadn't happened when you joined, because you can't expect that. But we've even got a contingency for that now, because Merkel Law, who work with the FSB, as you may be aware, Merkel Law have actually offered now a kind of pay-as-you-go service to people who genuinely possibly couldn't have afforded, to fight a case. My mother recently died, as you know, and I found that when I approached the lawyers for probate, to do a probate, not terribly complicated, they wanted to charge me the best side of, £250, including VAT, an hour to do what I've essentially done myself. It's a struggle, I'll grant you, particularly as you're in lockdown, so you can't get what you do. But you apply that to a business sense. Why on earth would a business owner turn down the opportunity to have 50 qualified lawyers responding to a question within, well, currently we're about 3 times the usage, but say within the day, but normally we're within the hour, sometimes, within 20 minutes. Immediately somebody's, without even paying us, has got that service. and they've got. I'll quickly share the screen, if I may, if that works. How do I do that? Do I just go to?
I don't think you can share your screen. I think
Perhaps I can't share. Okay. Well, if you go onto the FSB legal page, for example, which you probably can do, there's something like 1,000 sort of documents, contracts, terms, conditions, guidance sheets, specific areas on COVID that members can just make use of. So the very different world we now live in, the FSB has stepped up to the mark and done something about it. So that members have the support. Now, no other organization does what the FSB does in terms of dealing with small businesses to that sort of degree, at that sort of cost. So what I do for a living should be a lot easier. And sometimes I kind of wonder why people are going, well, that's worth thinking about. That could be a good idea. And you've got immediate access to the sort of lawyers that only large companies have access to for tens of thousands of pounds. But
I think the access to the telephone support is an amazing service. Really,
it's wonderful. I mean, we brought in another service because of people going online more, and because of people trading online more. We brought in a service only a year or so ago now, maybe 18 months probably, for cyber insurance. Now that's going to be pretty useful now, isn't it? for the likes of us in the cyber world. It's not as if the large companies can protect themselves from cyber attacks. I mean, we just had news of EasyJet, didn't we? With
they lost thousands.
A big hack. A small business could be pushed under by data protection breaches.
It's I mean, these big hacks show you how easy it is to fall foul of hackers and things, because if they can't protect themselves against these kind of issues, then what hope has a small business got? And I know that small businesses are often the victim of this kind of hacking type and ransom type crime, where people try and take control.
We've warned people on numerous occasions, that don't give in to what effectively is terrorism. But what do you do when you're a small business? You might have deadlines to hit. You have to prioritize all the time. I find it extraordinary that in this world of now largely online contact, people aren't utilizing that. Well, they're not really, they're busy, but they're not as busy. What they're busy at now is trying to rebuild what they had, when what they should be doing is looking at restructuring what they've got. Don't you think? And maybe if they factored in the FSB telephone number in the front, then maybe and other agents can be used, of course. I mean, I recently talked to somebody in a different area and just sort of said, well, actually, the person in your area will deal with that, and gave the business away. I'm not going to do it too often, but again, I like to try and think I can be helpful to people, because doing what I do, you gain a wide knowledge, of different things. And much of what we do being free within the realms of the Federation. And then there's other things too that we never thought of. For example, one of the things I found is happening quite a lot during the furlough period is comments from people, this is particularly on Facebook, about staff who are not quite as honest as they might once have been, like setting up a business under their boss's nose. I had one client where the client actually has paid a lot of money to have a very good system built into the member of staff's home, who has now used it to set up another business in direct competition with his boss, which he's going to have to do something about him, isn't he?
I don't think he'll be returning back to his job.
Well, I strongly advise him to talk to our lawyers and reminded him, since he has this incredible indemnity, which we have in play. And it's like how I describe it to people. It's like an umbrella. So you don't own the cover. You're simply covered by the cover. So it's like borrowing somebody's umbrella in a huge storm. And now, guys, we have a huge storm.
When we all get back to work, the potential claims from employees are going to be huge, because
crikey! I dread to think
treated, or they should have had this, or they those who get selected redundancy or whatever sort of thing. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare when people go back to work.
Who'd ever really heard, let's be honest, apart from American TV shows and American movies, who'd ever heard of a furlough period? Furlough was usually something that was applied to American. I remember On the Town, We're on furlough leave. That's the only time I'll feel Silvers. That's me age. But it's true. We haven't heard of that. So therefore, how can we deal with something we've never actually dealt with before?
Never been any
it's an unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, what have you had to learn in a 12-week period? A heck of a lot. And I'd like to think that most of our member professionals would have referred to the Federation legal site because it's pretty much there. So actually the information is up to date, and that's the key thing. People need to have active, to have a knowledge of where to go in a given situation, where the very people, government included, don't know where you go next with this thing. Where do you go to? You call upon the experience of other people, our members. You call upon the people we brought in to help our members survive through this process and past. And one of the things that always amuses me to a degree is that people often say, and what is it the Federation of Small Businesses actually does? What do you want it to do? We have free business banking through a group that's pretty well known if you go down the local shops. You have, it was a cooperative, okay. But they're also bounce back lenders, so that is obviously a great use for us. We have a funding platform now to help our members get through the incredible maze that is what sort of finance is available to me, where can I get it? And I think the other thing that does concern me is that although I'm welcoming people to be members, we want to make sure that the members we get are going to be using the services. So I'm always disappointed when people say, I left the FSB because I never got anything out of it, or I never used you. And I go, in what way would you never need to ring a lawyer, never need to consult with a tax advisor, never need assistance if your license was suspended? Because you could have, through no fault of your own, commit a crime that somebody else had committed, could be a member of staff. I mean, I came one particular case I remember, I won't name names, but one of my local firms had a criminal prosecution leveled against them because one of their staff had put the wrong standpipe, drain pipe, in the wrong hole in the wrong part of town. It was purely a political thing. But the council at the time operated a zero tolerance policy. So it wasn't until I mentioned, or have you mentioned the FSB, I helped them write a letter. And as soon as the FSB came into the frame, the local government decided not to pursue the case. Well, that's a pretty good deterrent, and that's how I put things, if I may. I think of it like an army. You can't have a battle fought unless you've got people who are professionally trained to be able to fight those battles. So we're constantly fighting a battle. You've got to have frontline troops. You've got to have cavalry. You've got to have telephone services like we have for the legal line, which are kind of symbolic of the field telephone in a battle. I need to know what's around the next corner. You could use all sorts of analogies, all of which the FSB can help with. So if you're a taxi driver, then the fact we're protecting members from motor prosecution, tax investigations, which is a common feature and will be much more common, I believe, in the future. We've rarely lost, if any time, lost a tax investigation on behalf of members, even when it comes down to these large figures that they tend to quote at us and frighten us to death when they suddenly find something. We've never had a case where members have had to pay phenomenal amounts. I think the average over the last 12 years or so has been about 3,000 or 4,000 additional tax, when the country looking at maybe 16,000 to 20,000 pound additional tax, including penalties and interest. So that is important. And people have also got a view, why am I doing this? When somebody advises you to do something, they can either advise you because you asked the question, or because they found that as it's their business, they're going to make money at it. So they're delighted you asked the question. So what I try to do is say, look, all you have to do is talk to me. Maybe something we do has some common ground. You think you know what we do, but in reality, you don't. And where would you find a ready-built service? So if you're a small business and you just started up, you need to know what direction to head in. On the Federation legal site, clever people like Steve have actually put together things like cash flow forecasts and Excel spreadsheets on a very simplified basis to help to keep your costs low, because most people are concerned about their incomes. What could be better? I think as ex-accountants, for me anyway, when you think about business, it's a two-ended system, isn't it? Money in, money out. So when money's not coming in, money out must need to be lesser. So from a foundation point of view, factor in the FSB. Couldn't hurt. It's yearly. You're not going to get caught out by it. You have instant access to it.
Not a very expensive fee to join, and the value, you could get it straight away just by making a few phone calls.
Line up, please. I thought I'd be a lot busier. Sadly, I'm not as busy as I have been, but I haven't been able to see anybody because people are wandering around like the proverbial headless chicken, quite apparently. And even my admittedly great enthusiasm for the organisation isn't down to anything other than the fact that as a member, I think it's brilliant that the little guy once in a while can win. And it's rare, isn't it? I mean, we're in the past, I mean, going back, I know I'm slightly older than you are, Steve, but going back quite a number of years, say 35 years or so, I remember a kind of a general thought that if you were a small business, you'd probably have 18 to 24 months survival rate, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you were going to succeed, 18 months was a fairly good indicator whether you were going to make it or not. 24 months, if you didn't make it, that wasn't terribly surprising. I have to say that in some cases of people I brought into the Federation, and I say that not as a sales thing, people have got to want to join, but listen to what the proposition is. Don't assume you know what it is. Great to have a platform where I could talk to a friend and be able to sort of put across a very serious point is, do you like saving money? Tick that box. Do you like efficiency? Where are you going to find a qualified team of lawyers? And we only have qualified people, because no point you having a question where, I mean, there are some organizations where you have thousands and thousands of pounds paid, and they're not even qualified people who answer the question. What? Why? Trust. And who better to recruit other members to our organization than the other members who use the services?
Yeah.
I mean, I was told not long ago, because we have another service called FSB Care. And FSB Care right now is a really valuable service because it helps with depression, bereavement, because in my case, I'm sad because I lost my mum.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that people need to ask. They have no roadmap to take a journey. Even our sat-nav in business has kind of given up. Don't ask me. How many times have we got in a car and said, right, I want to go this place, and led you to the nearest river? Hang on a minute, where's the bridge gone? Oh, well, that was there 5 years ago. We decided not to replace it. It's like that on the Isle of Wight. It's a Ventnor, you may know, suffered a landslip many, many years ago. To this day, you still can't get across the road because there isn't a road there to get across, and you have to go round. So sometimes people end up going round and round in circles. I'd like to say that the FSB is your best friend right now, that the Federation of Small Business members are your best friends simply because it's common. And if you have a common interest, you get on better. People, birds of a feather, etc. People get on better with people there. And we're representing accountants and doctors and dentists and builders and plumbers. And, I built up a branch, for example, on the Isle of Wight, my beloved branch there, where I started off with a very, very small number of people. And now I've got a network of people who know me and know that they can come to me. Now, if Chris Davis is identified as one thing, apart from a bloody nuisance when he turns up unexpectedly, I'm trying to actually be helpful. And this is what this is all about. So to have, the opportunity to say, had you thought about saving money? Why would you want to look around for somebody who can prepare a contract of employment for you and pay for it when you can use your documents and use that, for free just to help? And the knowledge you now gain will be there for you in the future. And another member recently say to me, really glad he joined, and he wished he'd been a member 5 years ago. That says a lot to me. That says enormous amount. Saying, what's that all about? And is that selling anything? No, it's just good ideas.
Yeah, no, it's great. Okay, Chris, well, I think that's we probably ought to draw it to a conclusion for today.
Certainly.
I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us. And
thank you very much for the invite.
Get in touch afterwards. So thanks very much, Chris. That's fantastic.
Are we off?